Hey everyone, my name is Evan Freiberger, and unfortunately, we had Helene came into the United States, caused power outages to millions of people, potentially multiple dams going over the top of their limits. Thankfully, I don't think any of them actually failed, even though some initial reports came out kind of making it seem like that happened. Even the mayor, even on one dam, said that it had failed when apparently it hadn't. But yeah, I mean, we've had just absolutely torrential rain for a lot of folks, a lot of trees down, a lot of lives ruined with Helene, and Helene is pretty much dying off, and it's almost completely out of our hair. There's a little bit of a swirl still in the United States. It's going to be bringing some cooler weather for some, but it's pretty much done. And most of us would like to sit down and get a break, and we're kind of tired of these tropical systems. A lot of us have been working very hard hours. EMS have been working probably 24 to 48 hours in a row. Power companies have been trying to restore power. The people of these states that have been affected are trying to clean up, and hopefully, this next system that I'm about to talk about doesn't go over the same errors. There's no guarantee. We don't know where it's going, but there is quite a stout signal popping up for another storm that's going to be moving into the Gulf of Mexico. So we're going to be talking about that in today's forecast, just kind of breaking down what we know and what we don't about this potential tropical system going into the future. So let's go ahead and hop right into it. All right, so here is our area of interest. As you can see, it has already been designated as a 50% chance of forming into some sort of tropical depression or storm over the next 7 days, sorry. And as you can see, over the next 2 days, it's at a 0% chance. So we're kind of in that kind of stage where we were with Helene a little while back, where there's not a whole lot of certainty. Uncertainty is going to be high at this point, but it does seem like there are some decent chances of something forming, even over the next 3 days here in the Caribbean. But it's going to take a while for it to make its way into the Gulf of Mexico, and a lot of things could change in terms of the weather patterns in the United States and steer this thing in a lot of different ways. So there's a lot of uncertainty still. So I don't want people freaking out about this storm just because we had Helene come in as a major hurricane. Doesn't mean that this one will be a major hurricane. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to figure out at least as much as we can know. But I mean, this is obviously probably going to be upsetting to some folks that don't want any more tropical activity. Everybody wants a break. As someone as a weather lover myself, I need a break. But yeah, as you can see, it is something that we are going to have to kind of pay attention to, and see what it's going to do. So first, what we got to do is kind of focus on what's going to be happening in the United States and kind of over there in the Atlantic Ocean, and because those are going to be the things that kind of steer this storm. Just kind of getting a general picture over the next 5 to 7 days of what's going to happen. This is the analysis period. There is Helene, and it's kind of what these models do is they kind of do a recap first, and you can see that it made its way into the United States, tracked up into the north, caused a heck of a lot of problem. But thankfully, as you can see, now that we're in the forecast period, it's going to kind of stall out and just kind of fade away into the darkness, and it needs to stay there, to be honest. But yeah, so as we push this forward, we're going into Tuesday. You can see it's generally going to be cooler on the eastern side of the United States, but then we're going to have a high pressure system build into the west coast. That's going to pull some, a little bit warmer temperatures into kind of the middle portion of the United States, and also the western portion of the United States. And that's going to kind of push in. And then eventually what's going to happen is that's going to skedaddle potentially. Again, this is kind of an ensemble. So it's kind of looking at what the average solution is for this far out, because we are looking pretty far out. But as you can see, right in here, there's our low pressure system being picked up in the Caribbean, about to enter into the Gulf of Mexico. And we generally have, a low pressure system, but no really big steering things are really sticking out to me here. So this thing will probably generally just track into the Gulf of Mexico. And then, we do have a little bit of a high pressure here. So that's going to be spinning the air along it in this fashion. And so that will kind of nudge the storm, potentially to the west or east, depending on, how strong it is. Is it even there? Again, we're 162 hours out at this point. So we're right around in that 7-day range where these models start to get really inaccurate. But you can see that we also have a high pressure system potentially forming on the northern portion of the United States. So let's go compare that to another model and see kind of how it does. But overall, as you can see, this thing does generally track into the Gulf of Mexico because of that little bit of a high pressure system kind of spinning it up in there. All right, next we're going to look at the GEFS ensemble member, and it's also doing its analysis period. There's Helene, we hate you, go away, thank you, bye. And then we get it says we eventually get that high pressure. So there is a little bit of agreement there on that high pressure moving into the United States, warming some folks up a little bit, and then eventually we push this forward until we see that low pressure system form. But look at this, the GEFS ensembles, as this thing starts to make its way into the Gulf of Mexico, we have a little bit more of a low pressure here, which would kind of steer it, initially a little bit further to the west. And you can see that's where it goes. And then we get a high pressure, a little area of high pressure form on the eastern side of the United States. So that could tug it, back up to the north if it's still present. But as you can see, there's definitely a little bit of disagreement here on our steering pattern. So it's going to be really hard to say where this thing is going to go or even how strong it will be here initially. And I'm about to show you the ensemble member runs here in just a second. You're going to see how just big the uncertainty is. So first, we're going to start off with the EPS model. And to be honest, this one's been struggling with these kind of Caribbean systems that spin up into the United States. It's been doing a terrible job. So maybe this time it does a little bit better, but just keep that in mind. It hasn't really been doing too great of a job with these systems in terms of intensity. But essentially what this is going to do, we're going to see all these little numbers start to pop up here, and some of the colors change. The colors are changing in regards to the pressure. We know lower pressure means stronger storm, and these numbers here are showing you what those pressures are. And so generally this seems like the system's going to be moving potentially out of South America, and then kind of coming into close to Mexico, and then it eventually makes its way up towards close to the Yucatan Peninsula. And now we are at 5 days out here, right around the end of our range of accuracy. And as you can see, the Euro ensemble has a lot of little members out here, maybe a tropical depression forming at this time, and then moving into the Gulf of Mexico, potentially after the next 6 days. And you can see most of the members are there, but a lot of them are weak. So the Euro, as expected, coming in with a weaker scenario here, which is what it usually does initially, especially with these storms in the Caribbean this year. But it's definitely interesting. A system moving into the Gulf of Mexico, obviously, perks your eyebrows up a little bit to kind of look at it and be like, what's going to happen? And that's what we're going to be trying to figure out, not completely today, but over the next, couple of days, figuring out exactly what this storm's going to do. But let's go look at another model. So here I think is going to be a very important distinction on what the potential track and intensity will be with this storm. This is the GEFS model, and it's pretty bullish. And it's so bullish, in fact, if I push this all the way to 3 days out, it's already forming a couple of these ensembles into a tropical depression. So if we are about 2 to 3 days out from now, and we've already got a named storm in the Caribbean, then that could be an indication that we could be dealing with another potentially dangerous system. So if it's 2 or 3 days from now and there's really nothing out there, just some scattered clouds and thunderstorms, then the Euro, at least at this point, would have been more right. But still, even if any of these models are kind of right or wrong over the next 3 days, there's still going to be a big difference in who's going to be right eventually as this pulls up into the Gulf of Mexico and then further down the line. We still can't rule out Mexico impact and then this thing just falling apart as well. So pushing this forward, though, you can see the GEFS is a lot more bullish. You can see we have a lot more orange colors here indicating lower pressures with these storms, with some of these ranging anywhere from a tropical depression to a category 3 hurricane or a category 2 hurricane there in the Caribbean. So if we see this thing form and then all of a sudden it's getting strong fast, then we know that the GFS was more right about the shear, the humidity that's going to be available for this storm. And then we're really going to have to pay attention after this point, because again, this is within the 4-day range, 4 to 5 day range. So we'll know by the end of next week what this storm is going to do. But pushing this forward, you can see see that, we have a big spread starting to form. And I'm going to push this. You're not supposed to push these all the way to the United States and take it seriously, which we're not going to do here. But I do want to show you just how uncertain, things are right now. So when I push this all the way to the United States, as you can see, we've got members going into Florida, we've got members going into Alabama, we've got members going into Mississippi, we've got members going into Louisiana, and we got members going into Texas. Okay, so if you went to a doctor's office and you asked him what's the prognosis, and he was like, okay, well, you might have cancer, or you might have leukemia, or you might have a brain aneurysm, or you might just be dehydrated, and he gave you like 10, 30, 40 different possibilities of what your problem could be. After doing a lot of tests on you, you wouldn't have a whole lot of trust in them. And just like that, you shouldn't have a whole lot of trust in any of these model runs right now. But what it does show you is that there's a crap ton of uncertainty. But one thing seems pretty consistent with this model is that it does kind of bring it near the Yucatan Peninsula, near Cuba, trying to thread the needle into the Gulf of Mexico. That, at this point, seems to be, I wouldn't say a likely scenario, but definitely a possible scenario, and a scenario to look out for into the future. But, so what do we know? We know that a tropical system could form over the next couple of days in the Caribbean, or not. We know that it could generally track into the Gulf of Mexico. We don't know how strong it's going to be. We don't know if it's going to be a major hurricane or just a tropical storm. We don't know where it's going to go after it goes into the Gulf of Mexico. So watch out for those lies out there, especially right now when we're this far out and things are this uncertain. If somebody says they think that it's going to hit Florida, or if somebody says they think it's going to hit Louisiana as a Category 3, what they're doing is they're just lying to you. But yeah, just make sure you got your BS meters on as we move forward, because having one hurricane just come through the United States, we do not need to be throwing people immediately back into panic. But yeah, looks like we got another one on our hands to keep an eye out for. And that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you guys on the next forecast. See ya.